there is anyone in the audience that wanted to speak during unscheduled audience participation, next to, in both of those corners on the island or bar there is an agenda, and there's also a card, and that card has instructions on the back of what's expected during that unscheduled audience participation, kind of like the rules of how that works. And then on the other side, you're giving us some detail as to who you are and what it is you may want to be saying. And so that when you get those filled out, if there is anybody that wants to do that, work it down to Angela, and then Angela will work those to me so that we can manage ourselves through that process. Yeah, I think that's it for preliminary announcements. Heather Schaefer, would you please do attendance? Here. Here. Here.
Present.
All right, all are present. Thank you very much. Mr. Throne, any changes to the board agenda?
None.
Seeing that there are none, we move on to item number 3, which is the consent agenda. The Board of Education workshop that we did with Mr. Marks, closed meeting minutes for September 21st, and bills payable September 2021, and new hires that we have listed. Would someone please put that motion on the floor? Mary?
Move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Is there support? Dan, support or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We move on to prearranged requests to address the board, and for OCTV, Ed Hunwick is first to be coming to speak to us.
Good evening. My name is Ed Hunwick. I'm a member of the Oxford Area Cable Communications Commission. I am currently its board chair. And I'm here today to, first of all, apologize on behalf of my board and the TV station, OCTV, which we oversee, regarding the incident that occurred on September the 24th, I believe, Friday, right before the football game. Unfortunately, an individual from our staff made some comments that were unquestioned, or they weren't comments that were not professional for him to provide on air. His comments were beyond the scope of what most of us, whatever dream this individual would say on air. He didn't realize he was on air, but that doesn't excuse the fact that the comments that he made were quite inappropriate. We have separated ourselves from this individual, and we are, as a TV station, we are trying to put, or we are putting in provisions to prevent future situations from this like this happening again. Unfortunately, we can't guarantee this, but we certainly hope we can do our best to control it, and we don't foresee this happening again. We have a great group of individuals. This individual who made these comments were completely off base from what we know of this individual in the past. So it was very embarrassing not only to our board and to our remaining staff. And we're here, I'm here to apologize to this board, to the community, and the school district for those inappropriate comments. And we are trying to put forth a good faith effort to put provision in place. Like I said, we don't want this to happen again. And we have new director of the station, and we're hoping that we can maintain the critical relationship that we have with the school district. It is vital for us, the TV station, that our relationship with the school district remains strong, and if that is imperiled in some way, it would be on our, it would move us to correct it as our problem. And this is our problem, and we're doing our best to make sure it doesn't happen again. And we want to make sure the school district knows the value we put on the school district and how important the school district is to us to exist as an entity. Because as I was telling Mr. Weaver earlier, if it wasn't working, the school district provides probably 60% of the news for the Oxford Leader and probably 60-70% of what we do on TV. But without the school district, I don't think we need to exist. So it's very important for us to maintain a strong relationship with the school district, and we're going to do our very best to make sure that situations like that happen on the 24th when we're happening again.
Mr. Uncle, thank you very much. Thank you very much for coming in and so quickly coming in to let us know what occurred. We accept your apology. And most importantly, thank you for the corrective action steps that you are putting in place to prevent future incidents, which are vital.
Yeah, our board was pretty much separated at the time this incident occurred. I was 2 hours from getting on a plane or leaving for the airport when I went into the TV station to drop something off, and I was handed Mr. Weaver's letter. And I spent the first 2 days while I was in Florida on the phone, and I had never spent as much time on my cell phone in those 2 days as I had the past 10 years, I think. And other members of our board were in different parts of the country as well. And we all came, not all of us, but we were scheduled to come back. We made sure we came back to convene as quickly as possible to address the situation.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Do any of the board members have a comment or question? Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Mr. Bigelow, Clear Lake Elementary School. How are you, sir?
Doing well, yourself?
Good.
Just bear with me 1 second. Well, good evening. It's certainly nice to see you all. It's been a while. I'm grateful for the opportunity tonight to just spend a few minutes with you, sharing some things about Clear Lake, highlighting some of the initiatives and things that we have going on in the building. Before I move to the next 2 slides, which are focused on our stakeholder data feedback from our parents and from our staff, I want to provide some context to the 3 pictures that you see up on the screen here. So I've been fortunate to serve in this district for the past 20 years. I was a teacher at DA, served 3 years at the middle school as an AP, and believe it or not, the last 10 years I've been at Clear Lake. During those 20 years, there's been a lot of proud moments, a lot of highlights, a lot of things that really stand out. I've had this conversation with staff a lot, it seems like, over the course of the past 20 months. But I've never been more prouder of what we've been able to accomplish over the past 20 months. And we've done that because we've been together, we've persevered through challenges, we've stuck together, we've stuck to our mission and vision and what we believe in. And so I say all of that to bring us back to this screen and these 3 pictures. These are pictures from last year. And so, although it was modified and a little bit different, we were still able to provide some great opportunities for our kids. So whether it be Halloween there on the far left, our annual Clear Lake Fun Run in the middle, and then we were also able to provide a 5th grade camp experience for our students last spring, and that's really what it's all about. So even though a little bit later on I'm going to share some other points of pride, I thought it was important to share that with you all. So looking at our building survey data, first from our parents, a high percentage of our parents would recommend Clear Lake Elementary to a family member seeking a school. They rated the overall quality of Clear Lake Elementary as excellent or good. A high percentage of parents indicated the school's learning standards and expectations are clearly communicated to students. And they also indicated that teachers provide helpful feedback about student work. When looking at an actual item, and unfortunately this was also an actionable item that I shared with you 2 years ago in the fall, but that would be increasing the participation in our survey data. We had about 360 families who would be eligible to take the survey this last spring, and we had 52 responses. So that's something that we really want to pay close attention to. Looking at our staff responses, a high percentage of staff would recommend Clear Lake to both a friend seeking employment and to a family member seeking a school for their child. I did want to just make a brief comment about this point. I think this speaks directly to culture, the culture that we're trying to build within the building. You want to enjoy coming to work every single day. We got great families, we have great students, and our teachers love coming to work each day. So that was definitely something that we wanted to share. A high percentage of staff indicated students are engaged in learning, and to me that comes back to relationships, taking the time to develop relationships with our kids, knowing who they are as individuals, and then really being able to plan instruction that's going to allow them to connect to the content that's being taught. And then a high percentage of staff believe that helpful feedback about student work is communicated. Looking at our actionable items, survey participation again, about roughly half of our staff took the survey this past spring. And the second point there, continued professional learning focused on student behavior, social, and emotional health. Shifting gears and looking at our school improvement plan, three of our main focus areas this year. The first, I believe Mr. McDivitt in his presentation last month spoke about win time. And win time stands for what I need. So it's a school-wide system of support intervention block. It's a focus on both academics and behavior. And so at Clear Lake, it's a 30-minute block built into the master schedule every single day. That's focused on academics and behavior for students. We pull students 4 to 5 times per week. It is an all hands on deck approach. So basically during that 30-minute block, some students may stay in the classroom while others might be pulled for math support, reading support. Some students might be pulled to meet with a resource room teacher. They also might be pulled to work with our family school liaison or our social worker. So again, it's all hands on deck, concentrating on that one specific grade level. We are in our 3rd week of implementation. As you know, we are in our 7th week of school. It's really important the first month or so. We took time to develop relationships with our kids, first and foremost, and then also collect baseline data so we can determine what their strengths were and where are some areas that they need to grow. The second point, career readiness in STEM will be a huge focus for us this year. Lisa Butts has been a tremendous help to us in that department. We've really been focusing on making authentic connections to our curriculum and then also to our program of inquiry. So we've been working with our teachers on that. This year, we're going to be hosting our first annual Clear Lake Career Exploration and Mentor Day. That's coming up at the end of May. And then last year we were supposed to put in a STEM room, a STEM learning room, but that got put on hold with everything else going on, so we're going to be moving forward with that as we progress throughout the fall and into the winter. And then the last bullet point there, continued implementation, improvement of our PBS system of support at Clear Lake. Points of pride, I kind of alluded to this at the beginning of my presentation. A huge point of pride would be the Clear Lake school community. Such a high level of support across the board with our procedures and our safety protocols. You know, when we started last year, we didn't know how long we would last, but the buy-in from the get-go was extremely high, and we were just so grateful for the opportunity to have kids back in that seated environment. We had minimal disruptions to seated instruction and learning throughout the year, and overall, last June, just a huge sense of accomplishment for what we were able to do. We capitalized on face-to-face learning. We were able to provide both individual and small group instruction. We were able to provide academic, social, and emotional supports. Students participated in an IB exhibition. We held 5th grade exhibition out at the football field, which was a great experience for our 5th graders. We had camp. We were able to do Halloween festivities. We had our virtual giving tree. We had grade level music concerts, although we were videoing them, but we were still able to put together a product and send that out to our families. We had March's Reading Month, and we were also able to conduct our annual Clear Lake Fun Run. And the last slide here is just a couple of pictures. We have some teachers collaborating on the left, and then on the right is a picture from our 5th grade celebration last June. So again, I just really appreciate the opportunity. If anybody has any questions, I'd be more than willing to answer. Thank you.
School board members, anybody have something to add? I have a couple of things. Common in almost all of these is the participation in the review process at the end, right? Getting the responses, the percentage of responses, either whether from staff or from parents. And interesting, it's probably a David Pass question, but from a staff perspective, could it not be partly attached to the review process? You fill one out, or it affects your review. And then secondly, have you thought about from the student perspective, I don't know, you guys do great things when you like have class competing against each other, or grades competing against each other. Turn that thing into something crazy fun where, you know, the kids begging their parents to fill it out so they can have a piece party or something.
Yeah, absolutely.
But because we work really hard and the data, I think we know we're doing all right.
Right.
But boy, oh boy, if we can get that number up to 60, 70, 80%, we know we're doing all right, right? So just some thoughts that I had in a continuous improvement way.
Sure.
Ever since been on the board, that's been the issue.
Right.
Is the number of people who are responding.
Yep.
And maybe we quit doing, do we do it at the end of the year?
We do, typically in the spring, yes.
Yeah. And so, yeah, it's just a thought.
Thank you.
Anyone else? And Mary?
Thank you so much, Mr. Griggle, for coming and sharing all these stories. I just love hearing about all the great things that we're doing and how we're collaborating. You know, and teachers, administrators, staff, everybody's just getting it done for the kids, and that is just fantastic. I'm looking forward to March's Reading Month. I'm hoping I can get back there this year. Hopefully things are improving. Thank you so much.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Dan?
Thanks, Matt. You know, one of the things that I get away from this is the points of pride. What we were able to do last year. 1 point of pride would have been more than one every other district did. So, thank you.
Is that the truth?
Keeping the staff as focused as possible. It's trying times, but as I said it before, I continue to say it. We can only get through this together. Thank you very much for your staff and your families for doing their very best to get kids educated. That's a mission.
Thank you.
No matter where you are, that's a mission. So thanks.
Anyone else?
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, sir. All right, we're still under number 4 prearranged. We're going to see our 2020-2021 final audit presentation. Welcome back.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here. Give me 1 second to cue this up. You can see those on the stage. You also have a packet in front of you with these slides. So sometimes they get a little small, and I know my eyes aren't as good as they used to be either. So I'll pull these out so I'm right with you. My name is Jacob Sobczynski. I'm the principal in charge of ensuring that the district's audit is completed. We go back in time a little bit to last June, so we're presenting on June numbers in this report. When we start the audit, and it's a financial statement audit, we begin at the beginning, which is understanding the internal controls, the internal workings, processes, procedures that the district employs to account and maintain and to ensure that the reporting financially is correct. We do tests. We look at journal entries. We look at receipts. We look at disbursements, how you're spending the money. We review a ton of state compliance issues to make sure that you're in compliance with what the state says you need to be in from a financial standpoint. We look at pupil membership, because remember, we're going to talk about Proposal A. We always do. Pupil membership times the foundation allowance is how you get a bulk of your funding. So we pay real close attention to that pupil membership, the counts, the student counts. We look at budgeting and payroll, bid process, make sure you're spending money appropriately. And we look at some of the governance things too, policies and procedures that the board implores, or that the board says management needs to use in their financial accounting. We also look at federal programs, special education we've done in the past, the ESSER dollars, CRF dollars, we pay close attention to those federal dollars that were used for COVID and COVID issues. We also look at capital projects funds, ensuring that those bond proceeds that we get when we sell a bond, that those are being spent in compliance. We looked at 2019's bond spending as well as 2020 this year. And of course, the sinking fund, the special millage for the sinking fund dollars. Very special rules on how those dollars can be spent. We pay very close attention to that testing as well. It's a lot of stuff, right? I mean, that's a lot of stuff we're doing, and that doesn't account for half of it. Connie and Sam and the rest of the finance team can probably attest to all the questions we ask and the items we ask. At the end of all that work, we really come down to this one paragraph in the audit report. This is the whole audit's in one paragraph, and it says, we believe as independent auditors that the financial statements are presented without material misstatement. And that's a good thing. That's a win, that's a pass. That audit report, that big thick folder or pad of paper you have with you, that's all good information. And it's a good, clean audit report. So congratulations. Part of that internal control process, we don't look specifically for areas of weakness, but when we come across one, we bring those to your attention. Last year we had a couple of findings. This year those were corrected. So again, thank you very much to the finance department for taking action on those items and correcting them. This year we had no material weaknesses, no deficiencies, no question costs, and no management comments. That's a double win. All right.
Oh, David,
Yes.
can you just say those 4 things one more time?
No material weaknesses, no deficiencies, no question cost, and no management comments. Don't lose sight of the goal. Let's maintain that. We get into the fun stuff, the numbers. They're real small for you. But generally, we look at the balance sheet. This is, again, a snapshot in time. This is as of June. That general fund really accounts for a lot of our general obligations. That's our state aid money, that's our federal dollars, a bulk of our federal dollars, and how we spend that and where our balance sheet looks like. What are we worth for dollars and cents? Cash is always going to be a big one at the top because we got to get through the July and August and September state aid issues. September, we don't get state aid in October. So we've got a little crunch in cash and state aid, so we got to have some cash on reserve. Due from other governments, $15 million. That's really the July and August state aid receivable, as well as some federal grant requests that we're waiting for money to come in. All that money, a lot of that money is already spoken for due to other governments, payroll obligations, payroll liabilities. Speaks for a lot of that money that we're going to receive. We have to turn back out and pay for July and August contracts for our educators as well. At the end of the day, our total fund balance in the general fund accounted for $11.4 million. We measure fund balance, and this is just one measurement, as a percentage of unrestricted revenues and expenditures. 2 different calculations give you about the same calculation, hovers about 15%, 16% this year. The general fund we talked about of 11.4, some of that's spoken for. Some of it's non-spendable dollars, those are prepaid dollars that we've already paid for, we just need to incur the expenditures, as well as assignment by administration and the board for various obligations, specifically for education purposes, for education solutions, athletics, future healthcare costs, and for general long-term obligations as well. We talk about revenue and expenditures, and we've got a couple of charts next that'll show this a little bit better. But total revenues for the general fund accounted for about $80 million, and we spent about $80 million. It's a wash this year. Net change in fund balance was $206,000, going from $11.2 to $11.4 million in that first column. That all other funds, those numbers account for food service fund, some debt service funds, capital projects funds, and a lot of other ancillary things that we need to do to support the general fund, but not general fund operations directly. Typically, just as a caveat, typically those funds also are self-fulfilling, right? So a food service fund earns its money, spends its money. Debt service funds takes in tax revenue, spends that tax revenue to make debt payments. Capital project fund takes all that bond money in 1 year and spends it over the life of the bond project. So you'll see that's a big negative number this year, 7.2 million. That's because we're spending bond dollars in those funds. We look at the general fund budget as part of our procedures. We look for, are we budgeting correctly and accurately? And generally we are. To final budget, once we know where the numbers will lie, we do a final budget. That was about 81 million, almost 82 million in revenue and 82 million in expenses, that middle column. Our expenditures, those actuals and revenue, were pretty close to that. The difference in some of those numbers relates to how we budget for federal dollars. We have to budget a full grant even though we don't anticipate spending that whole grant that year. So we call that a pretty good budget this year. When we look at general fund revenue, remember Proposal A, students times our foundation allowance gives us revenue. That accounts for the local and the state. That's 86% of our revenue comes from Proposal A, comes from funding. That's a prescribed formula. Federal dollars make up about 6%. And we've got some other financing sources and money from the ISD or local interdistrict as well. How we spend those dollars, bulk of that, 60% of the dollars, about 47.7 million, go toward instructional costs. That's direct instructional classrooms. The other supporting services, 35%, the other large part of that pie, that goes back to assistance in instruction as well as pupil, as well as administration costs. So pretty common percentages we see from other districts of your size. When we look at a trend of revenue and expenses over the last 5 years, 2021, we see a nice little jump in that number. Some of that has to do with additional funding from COVID, the COVID dollars, CRF and ESSER and GEARS and all the other funding sources we got this year. Increase in revenue, increase in expense. One of the things we look at again is that enrollment trend. We want to make sure that our enrollment is maintaining. This year leveled off from a nice little rise over the last couple of years. So maintaining is a good thing in the state of Michigan. We like to see that. The other side of that formula is the foundation allowance. This year kind of leveled off. We should see a bump in 2022, which was a nice surprise for, I think, all of our finance departments in the state to get a little bump in state aid. So the formula looks good for 2021-22 school year. One of the big costs we have is retirement. We've talked about this before, that MIPSR state rate is being subsidized through $147. Our out-of-pocket costs are 28%, but the total cost of retirement is 42.72%. So every dollar of payroll is about 42 cents of retirement benefits. We don't see that in a paycheck all the time. We don't see that in our budget because that's passed through from the state of Michigan on some state aid dollars, but a huge impact on school finance for the state as a whole. Just wrapping up, looking at the future, that state economic, political conditions, always making sure we're advocating for the highest possible foundation allowance so that our schools are well funded. We talked about the rising benefit costs and retirement rates. Looking forward to what that allowance will be in the future as state revenue sources continue to decrease or change over time. We talked about enrollment trends, and then our pension obligation, our retirement obligation that we have to pay. That's an unfunded obligation. We'll be funding that over the next 30 years. That's a prescribed formula by the state. You and every other district is paying a little extra on that 42% to go toward your unfunded obligation. We've got some new accounting pronouncements coming up. We've talked with the accounting department, the finance department about those. And then just to keep in mind the effects of the COVID-19, the impact on students, we've got the additional funding, making sure we're using those federal dollars appropriately. So we'll be looking at those in future audits to make sure that we're spending in accordance with those grants. But this year was a great year, and you all should be very proud of the finance department and the district as a whole. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Dan?
Do you have the figure for people what the district received from the federal government for dollars? Or is it across the board the same for all districts, or is it based on their foundational level?
It's based off of a Title I allocation, so same way you're being allocated Title I, you're also receiving the ESSER dollars. You were also under the cap, so that you were made whole by, you were brought up to the minimum amount because your Title I allocation is smaller. So you were brought up to a cap. So there's a cap of, Connie, correct me if I'm wrong, $540 a student was the minimum? $450. $450. Good. For FB. There's different buckets of money, and so you'd have to analyze which bucket is which, but for the ESSER 1 was $450 minimum per student.
And all that gets audited.
Correct, yep, based on how you're spending those dollars, Dan.
Anyone else?
It's too easy, Tom.
Well, because they did a great job.
They did. I'm going to give them another little round of applause. I can't stress enough how much fun it is to work with Connie and Sam and the rest of the finance team. So I really do thank them for all their hard work and putting up with us for a week in their office and nosing around in their business. So thank you guys very much.
And Jake, thank you.
Thank you guys. Have a good night.
All right, we move on to the Board of Education matters, and Leo Humbach wants to talk about a choir field trip. Woo-hoo-hoo. It's good to see field trip in a presentation.
It definitely is. Mr. Donnelly, thank you so much for having me. Members of the board, Mr. Throne. Yes, I'm here to propose a field trip, a big field trip. Sorry, wrong one. So this is for us to go to New York City. We have not traveled since COVID has hit us, and we believe that we are now in a position where we are going to have the opportunity to do it safely. So when looking at this trip, I kind of thought about what does an Oxford graduate look like? At the end of the day, we need to ask ourselves, what do we want our students to have experienced while they're here at Oxford? What is it that we want them to feel and gain from being a student here? When they leave Oxford, they will not only represent the district, but the entire community of Oxford. And I want to give them the most well-rounded education that I can, being their choir teacher. Our students, the Oxford students, represent the best of who we are as a community. When they move into the world, we want them to be as prepared as possible. Traveling can broaden their horizons by giving them experiences that they cannot have at home. One of the educational experiences that I personally like doing, which is slightly different than some of the previous choir directors, is that instead of a performance, I like doing a workshop. The reason being is that when you go to a destination like New York, I want the students to gain something instead of give something. And when you're doing a performance, they're thinking about what they have to do, and they're thinking about walking across the stage, and their mind is right there, and it's not like, what am I learning right now? It's what am I doing? The workshop, they get to meet an actual Broadway star. And they get to spend 2 hours in a room with them, learning music with them, and then they get to spend time asking questions about what is life like performing in the professional world. And to me, that's an experience that you can't erase, and it's, to me, more educationally sound for them to be able to ask questions, to be able to see, is this something that I would like to go into later in life? We will be seeing a show on Broadway. We generally try to see the show that the actor is in that we do the workshop with, so it's really cool to see them on a stage in front of thousands of people performing what we had just performed in the workshop. Loss of instruction time. I know that this is a very big thing. I always try and minimize loss of instruction time. So I've chosen Memorial Day weekend to minimize that. We'll be wrapping up a lot of our things during school. I know that it is after the seniors graduate. That being said, I will make sure that they sign a contract. I know all of these kids that are going, and I know their character, and I know what they bring with them, and if there were any question marks, that would be something that I would say no to. But we have amazing kids in Oxford, and I don't see that as being a problem. If there is something that happens during the trip, they will be sent home. I'm not worried about it. They're amazing kids. Safety. Students will be in quad rooms. They will have 2 beds, so they'll be sharing a bed with another student. There'll be chaperones who will be in double rooms, and we have security guards that will be monitoring the hallways at night every evening. The students must be with a chaperone at all times. This is a city, it's not Disney World. We need to make sure that their safety is our #1 priority, and we want to bring home everyone that we take. The elephant in the room, COVID. As of right now, the city of New York has a vaccine mandate. We know this going into it. I've spoke at length with Mr. Wolf about it, and we're going to be transparent with the parents about this. It expires October 31st. We don't know whether or not they're going to extend it. That being said, Memorial Day is almost a year from now. We don't know what the world's going to look like a year from now, and it could be different. Traveler's insurance is something that I believe should be built into the price. I do have traveler's insurance from 2 of the 3 bids. I did not get it from one of them. It does raise the rate, but if for some reason we have to pull out at the end, like if there is a surge in COVID cases, or if they don't withdraw the vaccine restriction and a parent wants to pull their student out, they would be able to get 75 to 80% of their money back. Pricing. I understand that Bright Spark is the lowest price. I've personally traveled with them, and I have not had a very good experience with them. When we went to Disney World with them, they didn't tell us where to be, when to be there. The tour guide seemed lost, and there's always, in their itinerary that you have all received, there are some to be determined. They haven't been transparent about how much they're allotting for the musical ticket, where Bob Rogers and Student Adventures have both been transparent about how much they will be allotting for it. Student Adventures was recommended to me by Jim Gibbons. He's friends with the agent that I was working with, who has worked very hard. I personally have traveled with Bob Rogers for over 5 years. Our 6th year was cut short due to COVID, and they worked very hard to get us back as much money as they possibly could during that. I think we got about 82% of our money back. I will say that I feel incredibly comfortable with Bob Rogers. We would be traveling during the day instead of at night, so we would have 4 nights in a hotel instead of 3 nights. So the chaperones will be rested, the students will be well rested, and it will actually provide a better trip for the students. If we go with Student Adventures, we'll be traveling overnight, and then we will be getting off a bus and going through an entire day of activities. Because of that, I personally recommend Bob Rogers, but I'm also open to your suggestions or thoughts. I'm definitely not married to them because, Jim has traveled a long time and he's well-versed with Student Adventures, so I definitely take his recommendation highly. Fundraising. How do students pay for this? We're going to be doing a lot of different fundraising. The first one we're going to be doing is I have a company, Century Resources, that we sell cookie dough through. I know that discount cards have been something that the choirs have done in the past. Last year we put a hold on it because we knew that our community really couldn't afford to be giving discounts at restaurants and stuff like that. So we're going to be looking into getting back into selling discount cards, doing bottle drives. The Browns and the Gets, they run our student activities here, are fantastic with student. fundraising, and they're going to be giving us more opportunities and helping us get through that. Each student is going to be added to a spreadsheet, and we're going to monitor their specific money raised. Melissa Williams is going to help me out with that so that they can use that specific money to pay for this trip. And if they choose not to go on the trip this year, that money will be saved in their account that they'll be able to use in the future. They can use it for things like spirit wear. They can use it to pay for their dress or tux rental fee. It's money for them that has to be used through the school. So, I think this is an incredible opportunity. Yes, it's a little bit intimidating with what's going on in the outside world, but at the same time, I think that it's worth taking the risk because our students deserve that. When I came here last year, I promised all of them that my #1 goal was to give them as much normalcy as possible through these difficult times, and I really have focused and worked very hard to do that. Thank you very much.
Leo, thank you, and I personally love the workshop idea.
Thank you.
It's really a great idea, and also all the ways you were describing why you want to do it that way and why you want to do this with our kids. It made me think of the Portugal graduate, which is exactly our time, right?
Yes.
The whole job. It's a great job. Anybody have any comments or questions? Corey? How many students are planning on enrolling?
Right now, we have the trip based on a 72 passenger. That would include a minimum of 8 chaperones, 2 staff members, and then the rest would be students. So we don't know that we'll get that amount of students. We booked 2 buses, and we made sure that they would have extra room on the buses for themselves. If we end up being under the number of 56, we'll go down to 1 bus, and it shouldn't affect their price at all. Thank you.
Anyone else? Mary?
Thank you, Mr. Donovan. How are the parents feeling about the price difference? I mean, it's kind of hard because you have to go with who you can trust. These are our kids, so you have to be confident with that. And are they finding ways to work it out, and what's the feedback they're getting from families?
To be honest with you, I really haven't presented prices to the parents yet because I didn't want to do that without approval first. That being said, I have spoken to parents of students that are faculty, and me being comfortable with the company is incredibly important. They want to know that their kids are going to have a great time. They want to know that they're going to be safe. And they also want to be well rested if they're chaperones, so the extra night in a hotel is kind of a big deal to them. So, again, while I'm very comfortable with Bob Rogers, I'm also open to Jim's student travelers recommendation because Brian, who I've been working with, has done a fantastic job and worked very hard. The one specific issue that I have is that Bob Rogers has given me a guarantee secure of our buses for the weekend, and it's Memorial Weekend. It's really hard to get buses that weekend, and they've already booked our hotel. So those are 2 big guarantees that they're willing to give us that I haven't gotten from anyone else yet.
Well, I will say I went on a trip with my daughter's van to New York City, and we just had a fabulous time. It was a great experience for her and for me. And it was, I can't imagine traveling in the bus overnight and then having to do a whole day of events. As a chaperone, I'm not sure that I would think to do that. So I think it's a great idea to travel there.
Yeah, I've done it twice. It's pretty brutal.
Thank you for bringing up all the different points. We appreciate hearing that you did your homework. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure.
And as we're discussing, I just want you to know that our motion is going to be to approve or not approve.
Of course.
The trip. You and your department are going to decide what you're most comfortable with. We have to trust you at that point, right? We're not going
Agreed.
to dictate which one of these you have to do.
Yeah, and I spoke at length with Mr. Wolf. I actually spoke to him before walking in so that we're all on the same page about how we feel about it.
Very good. Heather, I think you had a comment on that.
Well, I was just going to echo that.
Yep.
Yeah, we haven't done the research, so it's not us going to tell you what to do.
Mm-hmm. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Chad, do you have anything?
Yeah, I'm curious. So just I guess looking at Bob Rogers, is this a trip that they do regularly?
Yes, I've traveled to New York City with Bob Rogers twice. I usually do a 3-year rotation. New York would be 1 year, Chicago would be another year, and then Disney would be another year, so that the kids are getting different experiences. I worked in a 3-year high school before coming to Oxford, so being in a 4-year high school, I might look at a fourth city like Nashville for a different experience for the students. I've been with them twice. They've been fantastic. I have the absolute best tour guides when I'm with them that are very knowledgeable about the city. They know where we should go, how to do it, how to get there, and like the quickest route, because if any of you have ever been to New York City, trying to get a charter bus through those streets is not very fun. And I was very specific about the hotel that I requested. It's 2 blocks from Times Square. It's about 6 blocks from Rockefeller Center. So to me, it's a lot of walking, so we don't have to deal with buses.
I did the Washington DC trip a few times, and there's something we said for a tour company that does that frequently.
Yes, very much so.
Anything else, board members? Would someone put the motion on Dan?
Move to approve the Oxford High School choir field trip to New York City, May 25th and 30th, 2022, as presented.
And is there support? Heather, support? Any more discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you so very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you for your work.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move to curriculum and instruction, and to the cabinet, I am going to, I think, move through these motions, and then if there is discussion, please be ready to address those. So would someone put the Oxford High School auto class tools purchase approval on the, yes, Chad?
Move to approve purchase tools from Ross Automotive Repair for the auto class at Oxford High School. The total amount of $31,411.22 as presented.
Is there support? Eric, support? Discussion? Corey?
Did we look at any of the Oxford locations to bid these out, or?
They looked at different organizations. Mrs. Butts went and got a couple of bids. These are trying to get tools for an automotive program. It's not like going to the local auto shops and getting those type of tools and that, although it sounds like they're the same, but getting them in this quantity and getting them all together. So we had some difficulties getting bids, but we did get second bids for the tools so that we can compare against. This one, we like this one because quite honestly, they had everything we needed and it was reasonably priced according to the other bid.
Anyone else? Mary?
Yeah, could I just get a little background on what the new tour are all about? I mean, seems like a large amount to me, but maybe not.
Well, one of the things is we do have a native review this year, as well as, and the other accreditation is up for review as well too. So we are updating, and we have a new auto teacher as well too, and he is extremely thorough. Mr. Hall is on top of things. I mean, he was extremely impressive. We had him come in to help us out at the end of last year, and his assessment of where the program is at and everything was just unbelievable. So we were excited to have him. But when going through the shop, there are some areas that we're having to address safety-wise, improving some of those areas with his knowledge and his interpretation of the native specifications and also all the other specifications. And this tool room is he wants to bring that back out into the floor, so he's building a tool crib again as well. And the tools need to be updated and kept in maintenance order and upkeep, and it's time to replace those. So, and this is coming from CTE funds as well too.
You said CTE funds?
Yes.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We move on to the motion for audio video system. Would someone like to put that on
G in the total amount of $1,036,198.90 as presented.
Thank you. Support? Mary, support? Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Sam, if you come up just in case we have some questions, would someone please put on the floor the motion to purchase a trans van for the maintenance department? Chad?
Move to approve the purchase of a Ford Transit van from Morgan Ford in the total amount of $40,259.
Thank you very much. Support? Mary, support? Discussion? Eric?
Maybe I can kind of skip it here, but what is a transit van used for? We have buses. What's the goal of this van?
Sure, so the van is actually for our own employee. We have three actual maintenance and operation employees in the district, and one of those employees is currently using a truck to haul tools, and it's just not very efficient, nor is it keeping the tools, all the tools that's necessary out of weather. And so purchasing this truck would allow us, this van, if you will, covered van, to have this third individual that we employ in operations to basically be on par with the other individuals in the department and being able to go from building to building with their tool sets. So it really is as simplistic as just keeping things safe and secure and out of the weather, and just having the convenience and the dependability of a newer vehicle to go from building to building on a daily basis.
Any other questions? Chad?
Sam, so I'm looking at the package. For some reason, it's jumping out of my head. Is this individual using one of those plow trucks?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
So that's putting additional wear on the truck.
It is.
And pull it off the road when the snow falls. Is that the type of situation?
That's correct, yeah. So, obviously with, the inclement weather on its way, we'd like to try to keep those miles down. The board did allow us the last several years to update our fleet, and we do have some really nice trucks, plow trucks, but they're not suitable for the type of work for HVAC, electrical, the things that we do around the district, those three techs that we have running around. It's just, from a work perspective, it's not convenient, if you will. So, not efficient.
Please go ahead.
Are you able to estimate the expected for the vehicle?
Absolutely. Well, the ones that we replaced several years ago, I've been with the district for a little over 6 years now. When I first came on board, we had a truck that dated back to, I want to say it was 2005. So in my estimation, our employees, they take care of the cars, they really do. And the maintenance is done regularly. I would estimate conservatively that these would last at least 10 years. Absolutely.
Anyone else? Dan?
Sam, is this purchase off of the state?
It is. It's my deal. Yeah. So it's a consortium bid. That's right.
So there is no, I walk into the dealership and it's whatever I can find. It's off the state.
Correct. That is correct. Yep, absolutely. We get the My Deal price, and it doesn't have to be a public school district. It could be a municipality, for instance, that would be able to get this same price.
I want to be sure, based on everything going on, automobiles,
The chip shortage. Yeah. Taking what? Great question. Kind of to add to that, it is a 30-week lead time, so even with the approval this evening, we're going to be waiting quite a long time for this vehicle, potentially.
So we're going to be waiting a significant period of time, and it goes into the next fiscal year. It's still allocated to this fiscal year, or is it get brought over to the next fiscal year?
Well, we will still be in this. I mean, if they are indeed tracking to, that type of time frame, we would still put it with the 2020, the 22 budget. So we are good. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Dan. Anyone else? Eric?
One more quick question, just so I'm clear, the person who uses this van is just for school purposes, only going from school to school, they're not going to be driving the van?
That is correct. Yeah, that is correct.
So given that, I said that, maybe you have 10 miles a week on it, it's probably going to last a long time, and that is referring.
It's going to have low miles, but it's going to have a lot more than 10 miles, in my opinion, on a weekly basis. No, it's okay. Just, our techs, like I said, there's only 3, and they are active, obviously. So, yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Anyone else? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Pass? Thank you, sir. Jill, we're going to do the same thing. If you come up, we're going to put the motion on the floor. There's a motion here for school of choice. Someone like to put that motion on the floor? Please. Mary?
Move to approve schools of choice enrollment for the 2021-2022 school year, second semester / trimester. Kindergarten through 9th grade unlimited district-wide, and 10th and 11th Oxford Virtual Academy unlimited full-time students. School, the whole thing?
Yes.
Schools of choice enrollment will open January 7, 2022, and close January 21, 2022 for seated secondary students. Schools of choice enrollment will be open January 3, 2022, and close January 17, 2022, all grade levels at Oxford Virtual Academy. Schools of choice enrollment will open November 9, 2021, and close November 23, 2021, for seated elementary grade levels.
Thank you, Mary. Is there support for this motion? Chad, support? Discussion. Yes, Mary.
I had a question as I was reading the motion. In the motion it states all grade levels at OVA, but we're saying in the report that OVA is only through 10th and only through 11th grade.
No, so it's a little bit confusing the way that's worded, but kindergarten through 9th grade for the entire district is unlimited, including OVA.
Yeah.
10th and 11th is going to be full-time OVA students only. So we're not going to accept part-time 10th and 11th grade students at OVA.
Okay. Is the motion still okay because it says all grade levels at Oxford? It's regarding the closing date. I just want to be sure that procedurally it's correct.
So at the bottom on the first part of the motion that you read, on the bottom it says 10th and 11th Oxford Virtual Academy, unlimited full-time students.
Correct. And on the next page, when it just talks about the dates, we say all grade levels at Oxford Virtual Academy.
I guess
Didn't know if there was a procedural problem or not.
I think it means all grade levels that we're accepting, but I understand. I understand if you guys want it to be more distinct than that.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we're saying it correctly.
Completely up to the board.
My suggestion is maybe you approve it tonight. Jill, you can go back, verify that it's open in schools next week. We still have a little bit of time. We can come back at the next meeting if we need to amend it. I can certainly amend it. How's that?
That's
That's
great.
very
Thank you.
necessary.
A couple questions. What is our average, how many kids on an average are in a classroom?
I anticipated that question. So are coming in, you mean?
Yeah, well, both. How many kids are currently right now seated? Sorry. How many kids are currently right now seated? Like, what is our average second grade? What is our average seated classroom size?
I don't know the average. I know that we're based on grade levels. So like our kindergarten classrooms at Clear Lake are hovering right around 19 or 20. Our fifth grade is more at around 25 to 26. So, I mean, we have those norms that we set before we accepted students first semester. But for school of choice, we're only expecting, we went back, we didn't want to look at last year because it was such a strange year. So we went back to 1920, we got 6, I think, total elementary students throughout the entire district. What we really see is a large number of OVA students during this time, which is why we were pretty explicit about which grade levels and how we wanted to handle that, and why OVA's dates are a little bit different, to give them more time, to give them an extra few days to get those records requests in for those students transferring, because they're really the ones receiving the largest number historically of any kind of second semester school of choice.
Thank you, Heather. Anyone else? All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Safety update?
I do not have anything prepared tonight. I'm happy to answer any questions, but I do not have anything.
Okay. Well, thank you. We're going to go to unscheduled audience participation. We're going to take a 5-minute break so that we can prepare a few things. I can get those cards in my hands. We're going to try and get a timer set up here like we did last time. So we're going to recess for about 5 minutes. All right, everyone, if you would, we're going to want to begin to put this back in order and begin our meeting, maybe another 30 seconds to a minute. So if there's anybody out in the hallway that would like to come in, so we're officially going back into our open session, 7:44. We have at least 14, 15 individuals that would like to speak during unscheduled audience participation. It appears that most are on the same subject. Just some things that I want to share with you. The last time we met, I just want to thank you for doing such a great job communicating what it is you wanted to communicate. Know that you're communicating with me as board president. You're not communicating with anybody else on the board. You're not communicating with anybody else out in the audience. What you're wanting to do is you're wanting the district, your representatives here at the school board, to hear you. We had about a 6.5-hour meeting last time, and the one thing that I want you to try to control is, as you're listening to people speak, if someone has already addressed your points, then be here to support them, but let's not elongate the meeting just to have the same points. I mean, what we're wanting to do is get to the specifics of what it is you may want to say to us. And so if you can understand where I'm coming from, to have 13 people come up and say the exact same thing, I knew it the first time, right? So help us. I'm not trying to rush you through this meeting. I just want you to know that after last meeting, I checked some parliamentary rules as to how I can manage a meeting better. And one of the things that it said was that once a point has been made, a point of order can be called because the same point's being made, and we just let the next person come up. And then a point of order can be made if we're saying the same thing, and you let the next person come up. I'm not trying to be rude. I'm not trying to silence your voice. I want to hear what everybody has to say, but please, for yourself, if you got 7 bullet items and 4 of them have already been touched, then hit your 3 that weren't touched. That's what I'm saying. I'm not trying to silence you. I'm just wanting to get all the information once, if that's possible. I think that's enough of an introduction. We have that light there by the microphone. Well, something different we're going to do this time is that at 4 minutes and 30 seconds, that light's going to flash once. That means you got 30 seconds to wrap up. And then it's going to flash again, and that's going to tell you that the 5 minutes are up. Again, that's something we've added so that you're not caught by surprise that 5 minutes is up so fast, and that first light is not telling you you have to be done. The first light is telling you that you need to wrap up. All right? So thank you very much for being here. Let's have this conversation be as positive and as civil as the conversation that we had last month. So first to come up, it looks like 2 individuals, Bobby Root and Kristen Carr. Kristen and Bobby, thank you. And who's going to go first?
I will.
All right, Bobby.
Yeah, I'm Bobby Roop. Mr. Donnelly, Mr. Throne, school board, we appreciate you guys and all that you're doing. I just want to kind of pick up where I left off the last time, and I was speaking on unity. And as you guys probably know, we represent this kind of large group of people. We're up over 900 now, and unity is super important to us. And the way that we conduct ourselves and our mission and our goals. We want to remain respectful and civil, and as far as we can guide other people to do that, that's what we're trying to do, and I hope that you guys know that. I do want to go on record and say that we are not terrorists. We are not a mob. We love people. We love you guys. We love our children, and that's why we're doing what we're doing. To that point, I'm sure you guys are aware that we had sent a letter today, or we had hired an attorney who sent you guys a letter today. And I do want to just reiterate a point that was made there. One of the paragraphs reads this: despite any opinion by Governor Whitmer or Ms. Stafford to the contrary, this board must recognize that health officers no longer have the authority to mandate masking in educational institutions for individuals 18 or younger. Any recommendation made by a health officer is not legally binding in the state of Michigan. Therefore, the Oxford Community Schools must follow the mandatory prohibitions of Act Number 87 and dissolve the mask mandate. And to that point, I mean, that's what we're asking you to do, and I'm going to hand it over to Kristen and let her make a point on that.
Kristen Carr, thanks for listening to us, first of all. Earlier today, I sent you all a spreadsheet with 80 plus students on it that had negative health outcomes or adverse events to prolonged mask wearing. This is only 80 students. It's a small number of kids that their parents reached out to us. We asked them to do this. But they reached out to us, and the emails that we got, we're reading them, and it's just devastating listening to these parents explain how these masks are just destroying their kids. You know, I know that my son has had issues with it as well, but it was like the same thing over and over and over again. It didn't matter how old these kids were, kindergarten up to 12th grade. And I just want to, I don't know if you even read my email, I hope you did, but this spreadsheet, most of the effects were chronic headaches. Basically every single kid that we got notice of had headaches, trouble focusing, anxiety, depression, suicidal thoughts. Most of them had difficulty breathing. The biggest thing was anxiety. These kids are just emotionally just damaged now to this with these masks. Difficulty breathing, loss of energy, acne on their face, rashes behind their ears, on their face. Kids with asthma are having worsened asthma symptoms from wearing these masks. Nosebleeds, dizziness. I just want to know, at what point do we say enough is enough and we're going to stand against this? When are we going to say that our children's well-being is more important than a virus with a 99.98% survival rate? I also sent today some documents that we FOIA'd from the Oakland County Health Department. This is data that they're using to call this mask mandate. We have, I think I sent you a couple days prior to the mask mandate, a couple days after the mask mandate. There were 2 kids in 3 counties hospitalized with COVID. And this does not mean that they were hospitalized because of COVID. It was, they tested positive while in the hospital. So it doesn't mean that they were hospitalized because they had COVID. They just tested positive. 2 kids out of 3 counties. That's not an emergency to me. We have all of these adults everywhere, no mask. You can go out to dinner, you can go to a bar, you can do all of these things as adults, which this is, you know, the adults and the elderly that's who the virus is supposed to be killing. And meanwhile, our kids, our 5-year-olds and our teenagers are forced to wear a mask. I mean, the damage that we're seeing done to these kids is just unbelievable. And this is, like I said, just 80 kids out of our district that this is affecting. And that's only, you know, a small percentage. So just wanted to reiterate that. I know Bobby has something else to say.
Yeah, I just want to make the point too that the mitigation is becoming and has been far worse than the disease itself. So I just want to close with this final statement that was in the letter that you guys received today. It says this from our attorney. It says, I therefore request that you repeal the continued implementation of the mask mandate in Oxford through executive action of the superintendent or a vote of the Board of Education during an open meeting. This action is required by Michigan law as the emergency order mandating mask wearing in educational institutions, at least as of September 29, 2021, is unlawful and unenforceable. In the absence of undertaking this obligation, I will advise my clients of their legal rights to pursue their other legal remedies. And I want you guys to know this isn't, again, a personal thing. It's just, we've exhausted our efforts over the last several weeks, and this is the next step that we have to take it to. Appreciate you guys, appreciate your time, thank you.
Bobby, thank you. And Bobby, yes, we did get the letter of intent for potential future lawsuits coming our way. And yes, we did get the information, spreadsheets, and those kinds of things. In general, glad that you're not a terrorist, by the way. In general, from your perspective and from your attorney's perspective, what you're saying is that because of the law that was signed at the end of September, went into effective October 1st, what your attorney and what your group is saying is that the Oakland County Health Department no longer has the authority, I've heard that 2 or 3 times, that it's unenforceable because you're saying that the law that was put into effect on October 1st supersede. Is that a proper word for that?
Yes.
Okay. Secondly, and we certainly heard at last meeting, some of the effects that we seem to be getting from our families and some of our kids, chronic headaches, anxiety, trouble focusing. I've heard and had people come to me talking about rashes and acne, especially for teenagers, but rashes for younger kids. And I guess one of the things, you made some statements, the mandate is worse than the illness, in a sense, of its effect on our kids, if you talk about statistics, is what you're trying to let us know. And that you would like to see this board vote in an open meeting to repeal that.
Yeah, I think that's what it's come to.
Okay. All right, anything else? Thank you. Kelly Brill.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate you letting me talk here. I'll make it real quick and real brief because I know, like you said, we've heard it all and whatnot. I just want, I'm here as a parent. I'm here as a parent of 4 kids. And I'm here on behalf of my husband and on other parents who are not able to be here or who may or may not feel comfortable speaking. I'm not sure I do at this point, but one thing about Oxford that has always stuck out with me, and I've been with Oxford for 11 years. I have 4 children. I've been through the preschool programs. I've been at DA. I've been at OES. I've been at the middle school, high school, Clear Lake, and OVA. And within OVA, it branches out into lots of different choices. And there's 2 things that come out. One, the students always come first. And the other is, there's no box. There's no box with Oxford because there's no kid the same. I have 4 children and they're all very, very different. And I'm coming to you as a parent advocate saying that this mask mandate is not a one-size-fits-all. It cannot work for every child. I've heard what was stated on the 80. I'm not one of the 80. I can tell you there's other kids that are having problems too, because it's my own. I'm thankful that 2 do not have to wear a mask, 2 do. And there is a difference. So I'm here on behalf of saying, let's keep doing what we do. We put the kids first, and we do not put kids in boxes. The mask does not work for every kid, and I'm asking for parent choice. The parents can choose to have their kids be masked or not. And I know that there's a lot more to this than just you guys making a decision. I am not unaware of that. But I want you to know that you've got this parent, you've got her husband, and you've got many more standing behind you if you're choosing for parent choice. Thank you.
Kelly, thank you. 4 kids. The good thing or the great thing about Oxford is that we put our students first and we treat them as individuals. They're not in a box. And you feel the mask mandate affects both of those things that we do well. It feels it's not putting kids first, and we definitely, by masking them all, is putting them all in a box. And you are a proponent of us getting to parent choice. Agreed?
Yes. Yes, please.
Thank you. Mr. Blake, Ray Blake.
Hi, Ray Blake. Bobby kind of stole some of my thunder there at the beginning, so I'll try to keep it real short. First of all, Mr. Donnelly, I'd like to say to you that I really appreciate the way that you summarize everything at the end. It tells us that you're listening, and that is appreciated. Okay? The other big thing I want to say is now that this new law has come down and these masks mandates are illegal, I call upon this board to vote to drop the mask requirements in Oxford. I'm asking you to do the right thing for the students. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Like what Bobby had said, the feeling on your part and some of your parts is that the law that came out on October 1st makes the mandate illegal. That's the connection that you're bridging. That if there's a prohibition to mask kids and enforce the mask on kids from 18
because of that, because of believing that the law that went into effect on October 1st nullifies the mandate, you're looking for us to vote to acknowledge that. Do the right thing. Thank you, sir. Darren Clement.
Thanks again, appreciate it. During the 14th, well, first of all, please, I'm going to reiterate a little bit what they've said. I'm taking it from a different angle. I appreciate you hearing me out. During the September 14th school board meeting, I am grateful you provided me 5 minutes to voice my opinion about Oakland County's child mask mandate. My comments noted, masks today, injections and further restrictions of our personal liberties tomorrow. It's not a Democrat, Republican, or independent ideology, it's Marxism. Do I do as I say or else approach, and they're just getting started. In the past 30 days, since our last meeting, I'd say the or else has clearly been initiated. Lives have forever been changed as a result of mask mandates and ultimatums associated with the world's greatest human experiment, which is these injections, non-FDA approved injections, not vaccines. Nearly 2 weeks after the Michigan governor signed into law Senate Bill 0082, our Oxford children remain in masks. If local politicians and elected officials are not bold and stand up to these tyrants, masks followed by child injections, experimental vaccine, racist critical race theory, and other unacceptable curriculum changes to negatively indoctrinate our children will become reality and forever change not only our education system, but our Oxford way of life. I'm sure there's a lot going on behind the scenes since September 14th, but the facts remain our children are still en masse. Big Pharma is not only promoting experimental injections for children as young as 5, but have submitted documentations through the FDA approval process. And the Biden administration is now targeting parents who are voicing their concerns at school board meetings. Frontline workers are being targeted as well. Think of that. Frontline workers are being targeted as well. Frontline workers to include every man and woman in the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and Coast Guard, doctors, nurses, policemen, firemen, teachers, and now airline pilots and staffs. These frontline workers have been told, do as I say or else. Do as I say or lose your career licenses, lose your jobs, lose your pensions, in essence, lose everything. It doesn't matter how many combat tours they fought in, how many buddies they watched get blown up beside them in defense of our country, how many lives they saved in raging seas, how many babies delivered and successful surgeries conducted, how many burning buildings they have run into, or how many passengers they have safely transported. This isn't a conspiracy, this is fact. These are our friends and these are our neighbors. I'm next, I can tell you. My job is just a matter of time. They are Democrats, they're Republicans, they're independents, and they are choosing freedom of choice. Those folks, those frontline workers are choosing freedom of choice not just for themselves, but they are once again sacrificing for all of us. I plead with you to vote and defy the Oakland County mask mandate and support freedom of choice. At what point are the risks to the board, personally and professionally, simply too high? At what point will the consequences of inaction be too high? Thanks again. My sincere thanks.
Darren, thank you. Before you walk away, I do agree that you seem to take this to a different, same argument from a different perspective, and I want to make sure that I understand it. You take this to a geopolitical perspective. You're actually saying it's less about masks and less about vaccines than it is a geopolitical move that we are experiencing in our country that is taking away our freedoms,
giving government the power to say, do what we say or else. And that what you're saying is, I heard you say that a year, 2, 3, 5 years ago, someone would have called this a conspiracy, but today it's being lived out in what we're seeing happening in frontline people who are in military, police, pilots, hospitals. We're seeing them being told or else.
Yes, sir. And I don't know about geopolitical, or I'm not trying to go Democrat, Republican, or parties. Not at all. I'm just asking the board to just look what's happened. I mean, this is our neighbors. I mean, looks what's happened, and simply the last year, and it is what it is. But that's what I'm asking to hit home, that this isn't only mass. It's mass today.
Yep.
Thanks again. Thanks a lot.
Marcy?
Good evening. My name is Marcy Enriquez, and you and I spoke on the phone yesterday, which I appreciate the time that you took with me. And at that time, you let me know you were going to push to get a resolution from the Oakland County Health Department with a deadline by the end of the week. I'm hoping that's part of what your notes at the end of the meeting are going to tell me about. I know you've also reached out several times via several modes of communication with no response from them, or a response of, we'll get back to you, but they never do. I can safely assume that you'll get the same response this time, so what are you going to do different? Will your request come in the form of a subpoena? Will it come in the form of a legal request that tells them legally they have to respond to you in a certain time frame to the list of 20 or so questions that you told me you had for them? Or are you just going to send them a strongly worded request that will fall on deaf ears? As I mentioned when we spoke, Commissioner Woodward has said publicly that he will never put the mask mandate on the agenda to be voted for. And he has publicly said that he is on the board until 2024, and there's nothing anybody can do about this. He's turned the mask agenda over to their health and safety committee that never meets. So again, nothing's ever going to be done about this through the Oakland County Health Department as it stands. So you can't justify taking the same approach every time. It's just not going to work. If you come to one of those board meetings, you'll see exactly what happens. People get 5 minutes. As soon as it's done, they say, Mr. Smith, you're next. Jane Doe, you're next. And that's it. They don't take the time to ask clarifying questions or make sure they understood what they said. They don't care. They just move on. Some of the commissioners don't even stay for the whole meeting. They don't give the public the respect to hear them out because they know it's never going to make the agenda to be voted on. They don't care. You can find all of these things when you list, if you were to listen to the recording, telling you that he won't let this come to a vote. Let's see here. If you did go there too, you'd also see many experts testifying with facts and data showing that the masks don't work and that all the damage that's done to our children. I shared with Mr. Donnelly some of the concerns and some of the things that happened with my child. You've heard from several others. I wasn't one of the 80 that the other people had talked about either, so we can just continue to add to that list. Apologize, I've lost my train of thought here. Parents can sue, and they are, but it takes time to sue the Oakland County Health Department. Would it make more sense for the school board to take an action on their own? Would that be more of an impression? Would a legal filing for you or from you to get data that would be useful for what they're saying their reasoning behind this mask mandate? You could send your data, as we talked about yesterday. Romeo schools, no mask. They have the same, or I think maybe even higher COVID cases than we have here. I don't remember exactly our conversation on that point, but I do know they have no mask and we're right around the same as they are with masks. It's not making a difference. And then once you get their data, you can go back with the data that you've been given showing that these are not working. You also discussed concerns of losing immunity, paying fines or other staff issues and other things if you were to just flat out defy the mandate. You're here for the kids, and this is destroying them. It's your duty to find a way to make it right for the kids. If it's not outright to find them, find another way. I was not able to find a suit of a board suing the health department like we had discussed in Michigan, but I did find plenty of suits of parents suing the school boards. I do not want to battle with you. And based on our conversation, I believe you are on our side. I believe all of you are. You just voted to send 65 plus kids to New York. I don't think you want, I know you want them to have normalcy, otherwise you wouldn't have voted to send them there. So I do believe you're on our side. As another woman had mentioned, if you guys take that next step, you'll have not only myself, but so many other parents that would be willing to share resources, whether it be attorneys that we know are on your side that could help you fight this battle, legwork for digging up data, as so many people have brought lots of data to you in the past. We would back you 100%. It would mean more coming from you than from us parents, because we haven't gotten this far, and we're just getting pushed down the road. And I'll leave you with this. If this was your child, and they were suffering from this mandate, and you saw how it was harming them, and we're going on 2 years, what would you do? I'm pretty sure I know the answer because we had a great conversation yesterday, Mr. Donnelly. So now I'm asking you, please act like this is your child that's suffering right now, and take that next step. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to work backwards. Every single day, I think about whether this is my child.
I believe that too.
What you are asking is, with all the things that we are concerned about when it comes to mandate, what are we going to do different than just send out another email? And you're seeking us to find a way. You may want to say.
I will, for sure.
For my comments later. I'm sorry that going to meetings there, that there's board members who would leave and not participate or I don't understand it. So I'm sorry that you've experienced what you have by people who are serving our state. And I'll probably talk a little bit about that immunity issue when I get a chance to talk. But I think what you're saying is if we were to find a way to make a decision, find a way to speak on behalf of the kids, you and many others would support us.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Peyton, are you wishing to come and talk with us?
Yes.
I saw 102 and 202, so I'm assuming you're next.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Peyton.
Okay, so I came here last time to talk about the issue. I was really excited because I felt like you guys really heard me last time because you took the time to come back and like tell what you heard and how you think you heard it and all that, and I even got quoted in the newspaper, so I thought you really heard me. So I was like super excited, and I was like telling my friends, "Oh, I think they're really great people. I think they're really going to do something about it." And my friends are like, "Oh, are you going to the next one?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Okay, well, tell us how it goes and like what are they going to do next? Because nothing has happened yet." So I was hoping to come back and try and hope that something happens this time. Because my friends were really excited to not have to wear masks anymore. And also, gosh, I'm so sorry. Mask breaks, like we're asking for mask breaks, and the teachers, every time we ask for mask breaks, which is almost every day, the teachers are like, "Oh, sorry, we don't have time today. Oh, we don't have time today, maybe tomorrow. Oh, we don't have time today, maybe tomorrow." And then we're at the end of the week. So if we don't get mask breaks, and my friends have gotten so like used to the masks that when we go outside, like for gym or whatever, they don't want to take theirs off because they've become ashamed of their face. Like they've become very they're not proud of their face and what they look like when you can only see their eyes and all the makeup they have above that, and then they take their mask off and they're like, oh, I don't look that good without a mask on. So they're scared to take their mask off while they're running around in gym, breathing heavily and not being able to breathe because they're scared of what they look like. And people don't even recognize people anymore. Like, I've heard a few of my friends took their friends to the event, like to some school events and stuff, which I'm happy that school events are going on, but they could not find their friend anywhere because they didn't recognize their face without a mask on. And so they had to text them and call and meet up and be like, oh, hey, now I recognize you. Because they've only recognized people with their masks on. And like like what someone else said, it's causing a lot of acne and stuff. Like, I have horrible acne right now. It was a lot better before like COVID and stuff. And I used to be very scared to treat it because I was scared that the chemicals that I put on my face to make my acne go away would get on my mask and I'd be breathing in chemicals and stuff like that from the stuff that goes on my face. And people, there are like 2 kids in my history class that have been quarantined and sent home because they have symptoms of COVID, when they will go to the doctors and get COVID tested and they are perfectly healthy, and they'll come back to school and they'll start acting like it again, like where they can't breathe and stuff because of the masks. Like, they'll cough because they can't breathe because of the mask. Like, that's just, and they're saying, oh, those are COVID symptoms, so they're getting quarantined. And I think the last thing I wanted to say was, this is, from what I've been taught for all the years growing up before COVID happened, was this is America, and we should be able to say what we want and do what we want when, and have freedom of speech. But ever since COVID started, it seems like this is not America anymore. We'll speak out, but we're not always sure if people are willing to listen anymore because of what they think should happen. So kind of like a lot of what a lot of people were saying, I guess, was my child, my choice, and stuff like that. And we have kids are counting on you because not a lot of people listen to us because we're not as smart and intelligent and we don't know a lot of stuff as other people do. So we're really counting on you guys to make a choice. And as my mom said, if you take this or whatever, a lot of people are going to be with you to support you, and the health department can't do this because it's now illegal since Whitmire said that we are not requiring masks anymore. And if Whitmire doesn't really think this is an emergency, is it really that big of a deal? Okay, thank you. Oxford Middle School, OMS. Mm-hmm.
Peyton, thank you, and you felt like maybe you were hurt last time, but now you're wondering why anything hasn't happened. And so I hear you. And I will later to talk about that as a board. We're working on time. I have not put more hours into this board in 4 years that I put into the last month. I will look into mask breaks. What school are you in again?
Oxford Middle School.
Okay. You talk about image issues, recognition issues, junior high and high school kids, acne.
Yep.
Counting on us to speak up for you kids, and that in your young age, you thought that you were in America where you had freedom of speech and freedom of choice, and maybe that's being taken away.
Yep.
Thank you, Peyton.
Thank you.
Jeannie Wade.
Hello. Okay, so I was reading this book from a personal hero of mine who is a pastor. His name is Francis Chan, and it really struck me, so I thought I would share it with you guys. It says, consider this testimony from a Christian man who lived in Germany during the Holocaust. He says, we heard stories of what was happening to Jews, but we were trying to distance ourselves from it because what could we do to stop it? A railroad track ran behind our small church, and each Sunday morning we could hear the whistle in the distance and the wheels coming over the tracks. We became disturbed when we heard cries coming from the train as it passed. We realized it was carrying Jews like cattle in the cars. Week after week the whistle would blow. We dreaded to hear the sound of those wheels because we knew that we would hear the cries of the Jews en route to a death camp. Their screams tormented us. We knew the time the train came, and when we heard the whistle blow, we began to sing hymns. By the time the train passed our church, we were singing at the top of our voices. If we heard the screams, we were singing more loudly, and soon we could hear them no more. Although years have passed, I still hear the train whistle in my sleep. God forgive me. Forgive all of us who call themselves Christians and yet did nothing to intervene. It's easy to be judgmental when you hear that story. It's sickening that Christians could hear their cries and drown them out by singing hymns. But what would you have done? Look at the pattern of your life. Would you really have gone against the norm and done something? If everyone else was singing, wouldn't you have just sung along? Based on the patterns of my life, I can't say for sure what I would have done, but I know the kind of man I want to be. Don't we all want to be the kind of people who are willing to stand up and say, I can't live like this anymore. I can't follow the trend and pretend that nothing is happening. It's easy to look at other moments in history and criticize the church for their poor response. The difficult part is looking at the world right now and assessing your response. And then I had some thoughts. Here's the thing about your line in the sand. If you won't or can't stand up for the smaller things, then you aren't going to be able to stand up for worse things down the road. The people who hid Anne Frank and her family were breaking the law, but those who turned in their neighbors and killed Jews were following it. The people who hid slaves in the Underground Railroad were breaking the law. The owners of them were following it. Rosa Parks was breaking the law when she said no, she wouldn't move to the back of the bus. The law is not a moral compass, and what you are saying is a law isn't even a law. It's time to stand for what's right. Be a voice for our kids. Worse things are coming, and we're watching it unfold in California. Are you guys going to ban unvaccinated kids from schools next? Do you want to look back on the decisions you made in these moments with regret that we emotionally damaged a generation of kids? These kids that were entrusted to us by God? Jesus said, let the children come to him. These kids matter to us and to God. What is happening to them is wrong. Last time I was here, I talked about the suicide rates. I've had to pull my kids from school and move them to different schooling options twice because I will never mask my kids. Since I was here speaking last month, my 5-year-old broke her arm in 3 places falling off the monkey bars. We spent 3 nights at Royal Beaumont, and guess what? She didn't have to wear a mask the entire time she was at the hospital, including in the emergency room. But if I were to send her to Oxford School, she would have to. We want the choice for our children. We want our children to stop having to be forced to live in mass and fear, to be taught that they're dirty and it's wrong to breathe fresh air. Legally, it's my choice for my child, not yours. And this basis to unmask our kids has been established. Just because the governor isn't following it or enforcing what she signed into law because it doesn't align with her political ideology, doesn't make it less wrong to break it. You can stand like you did last year when you opened schools when no one else did. The time to stand is now. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Thank you for the Francis Chan quote. I'm familiar with it.
He's my favorite.
One of my, but I think one of the different things that you're saying, and
is that a lot of people tend to break the law to do the right thing sometimes. You mentioned Rosa Parks going backwards. You mentioned Americans hiding slaves. You mentioned some Germans hiding Jews. They went against or mandated the law, however you want to do that, or call that. They broke the law to do the right thing. Am I grabbing that as one of your major points? And so, how are you going to act when the line, drawing the line in the sand? And you mentioned suicide rates being up and the effect that it's having on kids, and that it's about time that someone stands up for the kids.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Patrick, I don't know your last name. Colasanti. There it is. You said it much better than I would.
Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak and share my truth. I've been studying natural medicine for the past 10 years. Getting my doctorate in natural medicine, I've been studying specifically Ayurveda. We look at everything, all ailments start from a disconnect from spirit, a disconnect from source energy. And, seeing this as, I have a daughter at Lakeville Elementary. I have a son in Romeo Elementary. My son doesn't have to wear a mask. I was homeschooling both of my children until, was really looking forward to sending my daughter here and seeing that now we can have medical exceptions, but not religious exceptions. And so, I guess my question is, why are we taking something that has been given to us from the start of this insemination of our country, and now we have in California religious exceptions being taken away? I've written many of them. I'm tribal council for Thousand Sons and the Tribal Network. My partner worked at McLaren Health Center. She's working on COVID patients and non-COVID patients and isn't being quarantined, isn't bringing COVID home. Statistically speaking, children aren't susceptible to it, nor are they in any risk of dying from it, yet we've heard many people. I can give tons of content about how masks are unhealthy for children, yet my stance is that this is infringing on my religious right to choose to dress a certain way in alignment with my religious beliefs. I've been practicing Lakota medicine, been practicing Thai Ayurveda, and this is oppression. If we look at how or why our country started was for freedom. And I came into this meeting listening to people talk about, or listening to all talk about money. And if we follow the money, talking to different people throughout the week about why you guys can't allow our children to not wear masks because we're worried about fines. And so we're collecting money from this space is now dictating how we move and how we act, and it takes our freedom away, and we're scared of being fined. And I would like to make a point, the difference between a law and a mandate, none of this has been a law. And so all of the businesses that have been shut down or forced to shut down or been fined, none of those have held up in court. So yes, they can scare you into paying a fine, yet none of those have been held up in court because these are mandates, and these are infringing on our civil rights Title VII, Title IV, discriminating against religious belief in how I dress or how my daughter dresses. And none of these things have been, none of these mandates are strong enough to stand over our civil rights. And none of these, none of the pandemic, whatever you want to call it, is reason enough to take away our religious right. And I'm just wondering, why are we now at a space where I've been writing religious exceptions for vaccines for years for people that are in our tribe, that work at hospitals, that work at schools, and now we're at a place where the health department told that you guys can't take religious exceptions now? And now we're scared of losing funding, which hasn't held up. All of the businesses that have been shut down have been able to reopen. The ones that didn't shut down, that got fined, none of those fines held up. And so why are we worried about losing this money, and why are we allowing ourselves to be having our power given away? Something I've learned is that power isn't taken, power is given away. And we have these experiences where we feel scared. We need police to tell us how to drive down the road. We need, 9/11 happens, and now we need body scanning. We need all of these things. And we're at a place where we're now being forced to take our power back. And I'm grateful for this opportunity in the collective experience of life for us to be able to stand up and speak our truth. Yet there is a power and there is a voice that has an agenda, has a desired outcome, and it's causing us to band together and stand up. And I feel grateful for the opportunity, but also a little upset that we have to take our power back, something that was given to us from birth, something that, living in this country, we have these freedoms, and now we have to exercise our right to even have these freedoms. And so I guess where I'm at is, I have the medical background, yet also my religious background stands up stronger. And so why am I unable to send my daughter without a mask with a religious exception?
Patrick, thank you. Maybe I'll just work backwards on some of that. I think your answer is correct. Well, let me see this. What you're trying to remind us of is that our personal freedom that this nation has kind of governed its Declaration of Independence, Constitution, the civil rights, the freedoms to make choices. One of them being the First Amendment, which allows for freedom of religion. And one of the things that you're saying is, why is all that getting squeezed out, all those precious things that we hold sacred? Why all of a sudden, in one moment in time, in one event, in one whatever, those are getting squeezed out? When children are the least susceptible. You wanted to make sure that we knew that if it was money that we're worried about, or fines that we're worried about, that in the cases that you studied or know of, that none of them have stood up. None of them have stood up at the end. They may have been fined or told they were going to be fined, but at the end, somehow a court system or something protected them. And so hence, the religious exemption, being a pastor, I've asked the same question. It was specifically mentioned in the mandate that that's not acceptable. So yes, they chose to add that talk maybe a little bit about that a little later, but, so yes, we can accept the medical exemption because that's what the Old County Health Department said we could accept. When asked if we could use religious exemptions, they were told no. They told us no. We can agree or disagree with them, obviously, but that's how the mandate came down to our school district.
Now, I guess I'm just questioning why we're following a mandate that isn't a law that is now taking our civil rights away, which is actually law. So now we have a mandate that doesn't hold weight. It's just a personal opinion that is passed on, not based on science, not based in our civil liberties, which is now taking away our civil rights.
Understood. And maybe I'll speak to some of that when I have an opportunity in closing board comments. But I do understand the point, and I appreciate you coming to share with us and talk with us as a concerned parent. Thank you.
Thank you.
I love the name, Cherish.
Hello. Aside from what people have already spoke about, the 80 kids on that list, my children, 3 out of 4 of them are having to wear a mask right now. One's too young to wear a mask. I have 4 kids in 4 different schools. So 2 out of the 3 are showing significant health. One is self-harming herself from depression. The other one is 5 years old, has never in his life shown any signs of hyperactivity, never gotten in trouble. He's been in daycare since he was 6 months old, never once hit a child, never once has shown any signs of anger or aggression towards anybody. First week of school, came home showing aggression towards kids at school, hyperactivity the whole time he's been at school. So aside from that, I have a couple of facts, a lot of facts actually, from a well-known scientist who has many, many years of experience in forensic engineering, health and safety, environmental engineering, and energy experience. He has done many complex projects in risk assessment, industrial hygiene, process safety management, risk management, and health and safety audits throughout different health companies. Through his research, he's shown that the CDC recommends we wear a mask. They don't recommend that we wash our masks daily, and even if they had, there are studies that show that if we're wearing a mask 10 times, or after we wash a mask 10 times, if it's a cloth mask, it becomes 25% less effective. Also, he's done studies that have shown that optimal bacteria growth is in an environment which is 30 to 50% humidity, 77 to 86% Fahrenheit. That's where the most bacteria and fungi and mold grow, which is the environment we're putting over our children's face every day. That's what we're sending our kids to school, and I can guarantee you, I'm a germaphobe, and my kids' masks don't get washed every day. So we're sending our kids to school every single day, breathing in mold and bacteria. We always have mold and bacteria around us, but we're literally putting an environment around our kids' face to breathe that. They're using the CDC studies that they're throwing out, saying, they're using words that don't even prove. They're saying these things may help. They may do this. They may do that. A double layer mask may help prevent COVID. Well, nobody's wearing double layer masks. And they're not saying they do prevent COVID, they're saying they may. They don't use control groups in their studies. They're using multiple variants in their studies. So like masks, hand washing, and disinfecting rather than just masks. Again, their studies are done using double cloth masks, which nobody's using. The CDC states that cloth masks can block large droplets greater than 5 to 10 microns and can block the exhalation or breathing out of small droplets, while 99.9% of COVID particles in aerosols are aerosols, and most of them are an aerosol is less than 5 microns. COVID is 0.09 to 0.12 microns, which means they come in and out of our masks all day long. Another astonishing fact is that a 3% gap in any mask literally makes our masks 0% effective. Only a properly fitting half-face respirator will protect against COVID. Not even an N95 masks, which an N95 states on their package that they are not to be used against aerosol particles. If the CDC and health department were really concerned, like, I guess we would all be walking around in half-face respirators, because that's the only thing that's going to protect our kids from COVID, our kids who are not even really susceptible to it. That's all I would say.
Sure, thank you. 3 of your children are wearing masks, and 2 out of the 3 you're seeing significant reactions. One of your children is self-harming, and one of them is showing aggression, home probably and at school. And then you provided some statistics about the fact that we don't wash our masks, but if we did wash them, how ineffective they get to be 3 or 4 washes down the road. The concern of bacterial growth in the perfect environment of humidity and temperature that we breathe out every day, collecting in the mask. The language, 3M, CDC, talking about may help. Not, they don't say that it's going to prevent. In their studies, they don't use control groups. Talking about the fact that COVID is 99% aerosol, which takes you down to 0.09 to 0.12, and that even a gap in a mask makes a mask worthless. And that's all been revealed in studies or even stated by the CDC and mask manufacturers. Do I understand that?
And even if there were no gaps, there's still...
Right, even if there's no gaps, the fact is that you have the other issues that we talked about.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. If you would allow me, can we, I'd like to take just a 2-minute break, 2-3-minute break, and get myself refocused to hear the next 4 or 5 minutes and let me get talk. All right? So can we, 8:45, just go for a short recess? Back into play. And again, if you have new information or a new perspective, certainly want to respect your ability to come forward. We've got 4 more. Did you get any more sheets? Okay. We've got 4 more sheets. And so I think we have everybody back in the room at just flipped 8:52. Back from a short recess. Kristen Eldridge.
Good evening. My name is Kristen Eldridge. I am a mother of 3 young children. My oldest 2 are in kindergarten and 2nd grade at DA. First, I want to tell you about an incident that my second grader was involved in last Friday. My son loves school and rarely has anything negative to say about his time spent at DA, but on Friday he came home in tears and told me that it had been the worst day ever. He then proceeded to tell me that his class was forced to do run-walk laps indoors in gym class. Now, I was immediately concerned that students would be engaging in a high-intensity activity while indoors wearing masks, when there are so many other things they could have been doing when gym must be held inside. My son went on to tell me that at one point he began to walk during one of the run intervals because he was, quote, getting so tired and was scolded. He was also scolded for attempting to get a drink of water from his water bottle that he had brought with him to gym class and was reprimanded for trying to pull his mask down so he could get some air. To this last point, the teacher said that she was just trying to keep him safe. Okay, what in the world? First, I'm just going to ignore the fact that the teacher was aggressively enforcing an illegal mask mandate on my child. And I'm going to be honest, I haven't spent any time scouring the internet for data regarding the safety of wearing masks while engaging in high-intensity athletic activities such as running. And I'm not going to read to you headlines about youth and high school athletes who suffered some medical episode while exercising in a mask. I don't feel I need to do any of this because I feel like it's common sense. I'm an avid runner, and I have been for about 25 years. I would never ever consider wearing a mask while running. I know if I did so, it would make it too difficult for me to breathe properly as my heart rate increased, which could lead to fainting or worse. I do not have any medical condition that affects my breathing or blood pressure, but I have been hustling around the grocery store in a mask, and as soon as my heart rate started to go up, I could immediately tell I was struggling to breathe properly and had to take a mask break and slow down. That said, even if I found some mask I could breathe okay in during intense activity, I would still not wear one because it will get soaked with sweat, which is also not safe, nor is it sanitary, especially when you are talking about a child that will need to continue to wear that mask after the activity is done. Obviously, this running activity should have never even taken place, but why were my son's needs ignored by his teacher? Now, I want to tell you about my youngest son. He's not in Oxford schools yet. He's 2 years old. He has potentially life-threatening food allergies. Last spring, I knew my son would be starting preschool in the fall. So while we went over to my son's emergency action plan and updated his prescription for an EpiPen to keep at school, I asked my son's allergist if she would write a mask exemption, just in case another toddler mask mandate came up in the fall. You see, my 2-year-old has no understanding of his food allergies and is in no way experienced enough in life to know when he is experiencing a medical emergency. He relies exclusively on his caregivers to help keep him safe and recognize if he is having a reaction. How could a person who is responsible for several toddlers know that my son's lips are swelling or hives are forming around his mouth if he has something covering his mouth? And what if he starts vomiting while he's wearing his mask? For these reasons, it's unsafe for him to wear a mask in a childcare setting, and this is why I requested the mask exemption. The allergist's response to my concerns and request was simply, quote, "I'm fine with him wearing a mask." That's right, I could not get a mask exemption for my 2-year-old with life-threatening food allergies because a woman who has spent probably less than an hour with my child collectively over a few appointments, a woman who was not there when I held my son in my arms after he had a severe allergic reaction and thought I was going to lose him, is fine with it. My experience and concerns as his parent completely ignored. COVID is not of great concern for my son, but yet it is more important for him to wear a mask than for his caregivers to be able to see his face in the event of an allergic reaction. When did we as a society decide that our children's physical, mental, emotional, and medical needs are no longer important? Why are my children being asked to make these sacrifices for a virus that is not dangerous to them? As a parent, we are all doing our best to keep our children safe and well cared for based on their individual needs and those of our family. These are not the school's children. They are our children that we entrusted to you to educate, but we do expect you to keep them safe while in your care. We value and often rely on advice and opinions from doctors and educators, but it's parents who know what is best for our own children. I'm asking you to please stop enforcing the illegal Oakland County Health Order. Give parents the ability to opt their children out, or at a minimum, please adopt a more relaxed and passive approach to the mask enforcement, which would allow students to maybe take mask breaks at their leisure and remove masks while working independently or in other socially distanced situations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Your little one had the worst day ever this last Friday. There was a run-walk activity, which was part of probably the gym class or an exercise class, and they had to wear masks. And he was tired, and so he walked during one of the run sections and got scolded. He stopped to get a drink and I guess scolded again. Pulled on his mask because he was having trouble breathing and was addressed again. And from that teacher's perspective, all for the purpose of keeping the child safe. And hence what you're saying is, but the child's original needs were being ignored. And then like others, you have said, we are now experiencing physical, emotional, psychological effects on our children. And when does that out of the way, them even getting sick and surviving the illness, right? I think that's what you're saying. And you're asking us either to go against the order or to find a way to be less strict with the adherence.
Something. We need to, I think that it's pretty safe to say as a community, we need to come to some other solution.
Do something.
Do something.
Got it. Devin?
All right. Well, I definitely appreciate all of you and your attentiveness, and I'm very thankful it's not midnight. I was here last time, and that was when I got to speak, so, you know, it's nice being able to speak at a regular time. I'm not going to take a whole lot of your time. I just wanted to go over the law that was put into effect October 1st, in case nobody's aware of the actual wording of it. It's SB 82, Section 250. The director or local health officer shall not issue or enforce any orders or other directives that require an individual in this state who is under the age of 18 to wear a face mask or face covering. So it seems pretty clear to me that the mandate should no longer be valid. That aside, since we are in a public meeting, I would also ask that the board vote to end the mandate tonight, if that's a possibility. Other than that, that's all I have.
Thank you, Evan. What you're clarifying is the language of the law, and it clearly talks about you cannot issue or enforce.
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
Those are words that you're trying to make sure we hear, that they cannot issue or enforce a mask mandate for 18 and younger.
Yes.
And because of that, you're asking this board to vote on that issue. And I think what you're saying is vote to agree to the law and hence obey it rather than the temporary mandate.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Stephen?
Good evening. So I recall you were saying that you felt sorry for one of the other folks who had gone before the Board of County Commissioners. And I would recommend that tomorrow, 6 p.m., I believe it's 1200 Telegraph Road in Pontiac, that you attend the Oakland Board of County Commissioners, because you cannot simply be told the negligence and the disrespect. You must experience it to really understand it. So I'd highly recommend going there to experience it.
You said tomorrow at 6?
Correct.
Thank you.
Yep, tomorrow at 6 p.m. And let's see, regarding the law, some people pointed various things out. There is no law that is repugnant to the Constitution. I believe it's the 4th and the 14th Amendment that states that no liberty will be restricted without due process. This was written by people who had just fled a oppressive global empire that operated on decrees and mandates. So mandates was something they had in mind when they said that it has to be passed through legislation. Let's see, and regarding a meeting outside of tomorrow, if at all possible, I do understand that this is not a public forum. This is your regular business meeting. Thus, coming here is probably a little bit different than what you've been used to for some time. So if it were at all possible, I think it would be nice for us as citizens of this community, as neighbors, to have some sort of meeting, if we can, a town hall where we can actually engage in a discourse and conversation. There'd probably have to be some structure to it, I imagine, unless you had a bunch of angry parents yelling at you. But I think that could be something that would be productive if we can find a way that we can work together as a community against these unlawful mandates.
Stephen, thank you. Thank you for the invitation to attend the meeting tomorrow at 6 p.m. Going to the 14th Amendment, that no liberty can be affected without due process, right? Because liberty is the number one value in the whole system. And so you can't do anything to affect liberty without a due process. And you mentioned the idea of outside of these board meetings, would there be a way for us to have some town hall discussions that still are regulated, but maybe they're outside of the businessy side of what we do, and it can be just singular topics. And I think that we've talked about that a little bit, but so thank you for bringing that up again.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Chris Brady. And Krista, as far as I know, is our last speaker. Is that your intro? All right, thank you.
Hi. All right. Thank you so much for being here with us and for taking the time to listen to us again. I'm here representing the group Unmask Our Kids, Oxford, along with Kristen and Bobby. I had a speech planned, a really good one. Would have totally ripped at your heartstrings and convinced you that masks are lame. But I heard you when you asked us not to repeat ourselves and waste your time. So I will make this super short. I'm here to ask one thing. In this open meeting with a quorum present, I am asking you to vote tonight. Nobody likes lawsuits. Lawyers give me the heebie-jeebies, and they're expensive and traumatic, unless any of you are lawyers, and in that case, you are awesome. But I can confidently say for our entire group that we love Oxford, and we don't like the idea of a lawsuit. So let's end this right now. We are asking you to stand with us, take a vote tonight, and support our children. That's it.
Krista, thank you. Yeah, your one request, as several others have asked, is that if there is any way possible that we would put this item to a vote and take a stand tonight. I heard it. I am. All right, thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you. First, thank you for handling this meeting the way you did and the way you did last time. You've been heard and you were heard last time, and this board has been emailing, talking, studying, and so I just want you to know that there's things you may not see, but they're happening. There's not a person on this board that doesn't care about you and the kids. Not one of us got out of this position to make all the money that we're getting. Seriously. Having 7 kids and 7 grandchildren, everybody's got the short. We're doing this to give back to the community who has given us. And so
And we're hearing you. We've heard you from the first day. And I'm going to talk about maybe some of that in just a little bit. Let's continue on our agenda. We're finishing number 10, unscheduled audience participation. Number 11, we have some activities that all of you can be looking at. Superintendent Trone, anything under clarification?
None.
Final board comments. Dan?
Thank you, Tom. I could be really long, but I'm not going to be. I understand where everybody's coming from. Certainly do. I understand both sides. I understand that there's passion from kids. There's passion on both sides of it. And that's good that there's passion for kids and education. That is a great thing. Where I have a difficult time is we spend a lot of calories as a district talking about this topic. It's an important topic, and I understand that. It's not lost on me at all. But what's lost on I think, the population is the amount of time and energy that goes into what our staff is doing right now. We have a tremendous opportunity in front of us. And we have done a lot of great things in the district, but nobody knows about it because this is the only thing we're talking about. We've got great buildings with bonds, just had our buildings are phenomenal. Our staff is working their butts off. Our kids are doing great things. I don't know this for a fact, but I'm pretty darn sure we're probably the only district that has a student that scored a perfect score on their ACT. Nobody's talking about that. I feel when I scored them, I'm tired of being at the little kids table when all these other districts are getting all the accolades and all the praise for what they're doing. So with that being said, I want everybody to understand and to hear what you're saying. Our hands are tied, and I hate it. I hate it because every week we come in here and we're trying to do the best that we can. And when you start talking about, not me all, but when everybody starts talking about the direction of a man's mandate and what you guys are doing and what you're not doing and how come you're not following, you're following a law that doesn't make sense and it's not legal. Our lawyers tell you otherwise. And I respect every single person that spoke tonight, and I respect everybody's opinion. But we also have a duty that we make sure that this district is solvent, and if something happens and we get sued, who's going to pay the bill? It's going to be the taxpayers. And I'm sure there'll be more than 75 people in this room if that happens. So we can vote, we can do whatever we're going to do, but remember, we're losing good people because we're spending so much time doing these things. That's all I'm saying.
Dan, thank you. So let me say some things. And I think one of the first things that I want to talk to you about, and it is the most discussed topic, immunity, governmental immunity. It's not about being fined $1,000. It's not anything to do with that. The interesting power that the Oakland County Health Department has is to separate us from governmental immunity, which would also then separate you from your own insurance policies. And we have insurance policies that pay for attorneys to do jobs to protect us. And all of a sudden,
what they have built into the mandate and what has been baked into their powers as the Oakland County Health Department. And let me use this example, because it would go either way. Listen to me. It would go either way. The Oakland County Health Department mandates that we have to have our children masked in school. If you do not, yes, there's penalties you can pay, there's fines, and maybe we would win all those suits and we would never have to pay. I want you to consider that in the volatility that we have in our society today, we vote against the mask mandate. Next week, a month from now, Johnny goes on the bus unmasked, is in school unmasked, plays with Steve, eats lunch with Steve, unmasked. Steve comes down with COVID. Let's even play it out differently. Johnny has COVID. You isolate, Steve gets COVID. Steve's grandma lives at the house, she dies. And now they work backwards. If we obey the mandate, we cannot be sued. It's governmental immunity. If we vote against the mandate the way that they have it structured, then we bear all that burden because we defied a mandate. And Steve's family sues the Oakland County or sues Oxford School District for $100 million because we defied a mandate by a health department, and because we did that, Grandma died. Every day I wrestle with this. Because we have a responsibility not just to every kid's health, we have a responsibility to the economic side of this district. We've worked hard to get ourselves on the positive side. In one moment, because they have that kind of power, and because all you need is the perfect chemistry of attorneys and judges, and before you know it, you're as a district liable for something that you normally would have exemption from, immunity from. It is probably the number one thing that makes everything choke up a bit. But I just wanted to explain that because I think sometimes you think that we fear being fined $1,000 or something. We do not. We fear the district crumbling because we made a mistake, because we did it in a different way, because it could have been a different way. That's what we wrestle with. So let me share some thoughts with you. Compliance has been our position on COVID masking in general. And then I began to think about it. A school district in general is a compliance entity. We get told how we have to use our funds, we get told on what testing we have to use, we get told everything is regulated. A school district is a compliant entity. When COVID started, we did everything that we could do to comply to all the rules, whether we agreed with them or not agreed with them. I'm just telling you, this is not about pro-mask, anti-mask. It is about trying to follow the law or this mandate. And last year we did it. We complied. And when it got switched around, we danced and shuffled and we did everything we could to comply to the things because our number one objective was to make sure that the kids were in face-to-face education, and you praised us for that. From our perspective, all the mandates were lifted at the end of 2020-21 school year. And that's not our perspective, they were. All the mandates were lifted, they were gone. All summer we sought input from the Oakland County Health Department. All summer long. The State Board of Education decided to leave the masking decision to each district. So we planned all summer. We planned all summer to prepare our faculty, our staff, our parents to know that they were going to have to make choices just like they made choices the year before. You can make a choice to be at OVA, you can make a choice to be at face-to-face, you can make a choice to wear a mask, you can make a choice not to wear a mask. We just absolutely scheduled all of our stuff around the idea that that's what 2021-22 school year was going to look like. As you know, the day before school started, the Oakland County Health Department came out with a mask mandate. And some of you have FOIA, the Oakland County Health Department. You publicly put out different versions of that mandate, but it came out. We struggled. We even decided not to do anything until the next Monday because we needed 4 or 5 days to move the machine. I mean, moving a whole school district is moving a mountain. You've got personalities, you've got belief systems, you've got teachers, faculty, bus drivers, janitors, and so we didn't follow the mandate immediately because we needed time to move the mountain and get it shifted. Since that day, we have asked, as some of you have said, for clarification from the Oakland County Health Department. Jill has sent many emails. I've sent some very pointed emails. And you're right. We're not getting a response that we would expect. And so maybe your question is justified, and what are you going to do differently? We're very aware that Senate Bill 82 was passed at the end of September and became effective on October 1st. We do know that that bill went through the state legislature, like a law should. We know that it was ultimately signed by our governor at the end of September and was put into law on October 1st. I want to thank you, those of you who came to see me at my coffee shop and called me or emailed me. You made me begin to think about something. I speak before you today uncertain as to whether I or my fellow board members can fulfill our oaths of office at this point. We face a temporary mandate that says one thing and a signed law that says another thing. If we find ourselves complying to the mandate, then we're not following the law. If we comply to the law, we're not following the mandate. But each and every one of us said that we would abide by the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the state of Michigan. And as a citizen and as the school board president, I find myself in an angst anguishing over the fact, as one of you told me in an email, how can you fulfill your oath of office? I don't know. This is not a conflict we created. This is not a conflict that we imposed upon ourselves. I'm looking for a way for the creators of the conflict to find a resolution, forcing them, if necessary, let the judicial branch decide the constitutionality between the two requirements. I mean, that is how the system works. Legislature makes a law, executive branch approves a law, and if somebody doesn't like it, the legislative branch decides who's right. Since we meet again as a board next Tuesday, I'm proposing that we work this week to create a resolution demanding that the Oakland County Health Department and the Governor's Office seek from our state judicial branch a constitutional resolution to this matter. I think we also should resolve to ask our state representative to obtain an attorney general opinion. That these are things that we can do. We can choose in our next meeting, next Tuesday, to declare to the legislative branch, the executive branch, the Oakland County Health Department, and the judicial branch that we're in a constitutional crisis because we can't fulfill our oath when there's two things saying opposite things. I believe that if we contact our state representatives, I have a feeling that in the way that the law is written, asking the Attorney General for an opinion becomes our mandate, which means the Attorney General has to answer questions. I know that you want to vote. I think I've explained why we hesitate to make a vote. I'm asking you to give us a week to put these potential things into play. I believe that we could even today resolve to ask our state representatives to obtain the Attorney General opinion. I think the bigger resolution would take some time to write and to overall review and agree. But I will tell you that short of getting this resolved, I don't know how I can in good conscience believe that I'm fulfilling my oath of office to uphold the Constitution of the state of Michigan. And that's all I have. Anything else under board comments? Corey?
I wrote a few things out that I'm helpful that I, like the rest of you, got on this board to be the voice of this community for the kids. And I seriously think we're failing right now. I know we've heard various stories about rashes and other things like this, but coming right from the CDC website, in May of 2020, during the COVID-19 pandemic, emergency visits for suspected suicide attempts began to increase among adolescents 12 to 17 years old, especially females. During 2020, February 21 to March 2021, suspected suicide attempts were 50.6% higher. 50% higher than prior COVID. I agree. I think we should spend this next week putting this resolution together. But I'm a firm believer that I can solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of this state, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of the board member of the Board of Education of Oxford Community Schools, Oakland, and Lapeer County, Michigan, according to the best of my abilities. Quite honestly, I think we need to send that resolution to get an answer, because we're not. So, I mean, we as board members, we're left with, do we sit up here as hypocrites and say that we're going to follow a mandate and break the law? I mean, the only other alternative is resign. So, I think we need to send that resolution because, I mean, if we don't, why are we sitting?
Thank you, Corey. Anybody else have any last comments? Mary?
Thank you, President Donnelly, and for sharing a comment. And Corey, those statistics are horrifying. And it's not solely from wearing masks. My daughter is vaccinated and a mask wearer and a mask proponent. And she feels the same way a lot of people here do about wearing masks, about people who don't wear masks, because she's very afraid of getting sick. A lot of people are hurting because of the situation. Masks are a contributory factor. They're not the only factor. Everything in this world has changed. I think what's important is that we do stick together and support each other. Keep an eye on our kids, keep an eye on our neighbors' kids. Check in and see how people are doing. Check in on your neighbors who are adults, because we don't know what they're going through either. A lot of people have a lot going on. Remember to be civil to each other and care about each other, because whatever side you're on, there is somebody on the other side who feels just as passionately about their side and cares just as much for this community and their kids. I just think it's important to keep that in mind. On a positive note, it is great to have people coming out and talking about their community. And I think that teachers and administrators would love to have that time and energy put into their kids' classrooms. And please take up those volunteer opportunities with your kids and in their schools and in the district when they come out. I'm sure that the teachers and administrators could use your support too.
We just don't want to be shouting out. I mean, I'm not scolding you. But I think what they're saying is there's a restriction on
There's still other opportunities to volunteer in the district that may not be in the classroom. So check it out. There are lots of places that you can help out. I've done it myself this year. And so have some of the people that I work with. So just look for those opportunities because they are there. There are things that you can do if you look to help support this district. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Yes, sir.
Similar to what Corey said, to you don't get paid a lot of money. We can't all do this position to try and we all ran for these positions and asked you to vote for us and asked you to trust us that we made the right decisions. Can you hear me?
Can't hear you.
Okay. So we all ran for these positions as public volunteers, and we asked you to trust us to sit up here and make the best decisions that we can to educate your kids. That's really what the Board of Education's job is. And
I think that I want to say how much I appreciate that President Donnelly summarized everything and talked about, you know, what we can do to move forward. We are trying to find the best avenues to support all the families, both sides, to make it a choice. And we are trying to do the best by the students. That is really what our job is. A lot of people's opinions and passions are ran by fear on one side or the other, and those are scary roads to go down and don't normally lead to productive avenues. So try and keep that in mind, and I think show a little kindness. And I do appreciate everybody coming tonight and bringing all of their stories, their words, their facts. Very appreciated, and we all take notes and we all are listening. We are really listening. So I hope you have felt heard, and I hope that you understand that.
Thank you, Heather. So we're going to move on to other, and there's a couple things. One of the things that you had a chance to think about is, as I said in my discussion, one of the things that this is not about, from my perspective at this point, this is not about pro-mask, anti-mask. This is about a clarification of the law. Because I can't see constitutionally how I can obey one and not obey the other, and that puts me into the vice. And so one of the things that we can do in my studies is to ask our state representatives to obtain from the Attorney General a legal opinion. And she, right, has to give that. She has to give it by law when it's asked by those individuals. We could, under other, at least make that motion that we'll do that. And then if you all tell me that you're open to a discussion on creating a resolution that also seeks the same thing, just a clarification of two contradicting things, I think we've at least done something. It's not what you want, but it is something to push the ball further. So just be thinking about that as we go into other. So obviously, Superintendent Throne, you know that I have something under other. Do you have anything under other?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Donnelly. I would, like to thank Mr. Bigelow for his presentation tonight. And definitely, thinking back, we've always have been given advice on how we can be better in our audit process and all that kind of stuff. And I don't know, maybe it's the first time since I've been superintendent that we've had an audit with absolutely zero, recommendations or those types of things. And so I'm really thrilled about that. And along those lines, I guess I want to formally inform the board tonight of my intent to retire. I'll be putting out a statement and, just providing more insight. We've been going here tonight, so I don't really want to take up a bunch of time, but I do want to let the board and the public know of that intent. And I've got great faith in this district, and I'm sure that our best days are still ahead of us. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Strong.